Hi everyone, I am back for another episode, and what we're going to be talking about today is how to get started if you want to lose some body fat and if you are open to eating plant-based. Eating plant-based is what has worked for me, and so I wanted to give this to you. And if you've been following me for a little bit, then you know that I will vacillate between eating whole food plant-based ketogenic, which can be done, but it is quite restrictive, but it's doable. And so I vacillate between that and also eating high carb, low fat, whole food plant-based. So I did a very extensive video that I'll go ahead and put right up here about the difference between those two. And so I'm going to try to not repeat a bunch of that. And this video, if I do how to do both different types, this video is gonna be an hour long, so I don't want to do that to you. But I will make this kind of a 101 intro to how to eat whole food, plant-based, high carb, low fat. I'm gonna start with that one because that's how I reached my first goal, and I'll put the link to that video right up here. I was wearing the exact same sweater actually. I reached my first goal by doing that, and also I mixed in with it doing 5-2 fasting, and again, I'm not going to repeat that video I've already done. So if you want to kick your body fat loss up a notch, you can really choose between these two different things. But doing the high carb, low fat, I think is less restrictive, especially if you're traveling. I'm not saying it's not restrictive, I'm just saying it's less restrictive than whole food plant-based keto. And why am I so adamant about whole food plant-based? Because the science really backs it up. I'm a giant fan of Dr. Joel Fuhrman and Dr. Michael Greger. The reason why I really follow these doctors is because they follow the science. They're very evidence-based. So there are a whole bunch of other doctors too, but one thing that I would encourage you to do is if you have a doctor saying do this or do that, make sure that they actually have real evidence behind what they're saying, because a lot of them don't. And a lot of them are simply repeating bro science. A lot of them have not even published a peer-reviewed journal article ever in their lives. And it's really important that you are careful about who you follow. So I've made this handy dandy little list of things that I want to make sure that I go over. If you want to kick off the new year right, and if you're saying, okay, I like this idea of doing high carb, low fat, whole food plant-based, the key to either type of whole food plant-based diet or way of eating is that you keep it low calorie or underneath your calories that would sort of stabilize you throughout the day if you need to lose the weight and the body fat. Some people will say, well, it's a matter of calories in versus calories out. Some people say, no, it's definitely not about calories in versus calories out. Here's the thing. The evidence seems to support the idea that you do have a bucket of calories, but it's true that it isn't just a matter of calories in, calories out, because if you eat your simple carbs combined with fat, especially saturated fat, then what's going to happen is those simple carbs are going to spike your insulin, and that's your storage hormone, and it's going to store everything that goes along with it. So you need to understand that it's not just about calories in, calories out. It's how you combine the types of calories that you're eating. So I hope that makes sense. Another thing I will talk about is why you might want to choose high carb, low fat versus high fat, low carb. One reason why high carb, low fat might work for you is because you need to be honest with yourself. Do you cheat? Are you a cheater? Do you like your cupcakes? And I think probably everybody likes their cupcakes. If you are going to cheat by having a cupcake, a cookie, a brownie, anything that would mix your simple carbs with a fat, then it's less dangerous if you're on a high carb diet than if you're on a high fat diet. The reason is, okay, let's think about these things that we consider cheaty foods. Usually it's going to be like some sort of dessert, and your dessert has a lot of simple carbs, right? It's got sugars in it, it's got white flour in it. It's got things that basically once they enter your system, they're going to be metabolized as though it is pure sugar along with the fat. And again, since insulin is your storage hormone, and since insulin gets spiked as soon as those simple carbs hit your system, it's going to store not only all that fat that goes along with that cookie, brownie, cupcake, whatever it is, but it's going to start storing the fat that you just finished eating in your meal before your dessert. So if you are doing a high-fat diet, and let's say you have this high-fat meal because you're trying to be a good ketogenic follower, you've eaten lots of fat for your dinner, and now you're cheating by having a cookie. Those are simple carbs. All of that fat, all of it, not just the fat in that cookie, is going to be stored. All of that fat that's in your system that has yet to be worked through is going to be stored. Oh my God, it's just not good. If you want to see a really good video about how diabetes is actually caused by excess fat in the system, I'll link that here, but I'll just put a little caveat to that. The fat, it only gets in your stores if you eat it along with something that's going to spike that insulin in the first place. So just eating pure fat isn't necessarily, especially if it's plant-based, is not necessarily bad for you. Eating your animal foods is really dangerous though, because of the cholesterol and because of the proteins. Animal proteins can cause cancer, and that's been proven over and over again. All right, so now I'm actually going to go through not just why to start, because I've already gone through that, but how to start. All right, so if you want to start your high-carb, low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet, then here's what I recommend that you do. And my recommendations come from reading a ton. I have read so many books, and I have read so many articles, and I've watched so many of Dr. Greger's videos, which are all based on the peer-reviewed literature. So if you're wondering where I'm getting this information, that's where I'm getting this information. I've studied this for literally hundreds of hours. Probably at this point, I'm guessing about 300 or 400 hours worth of studying that I've done. So if you don't want to do all of that research, then, maybe this video will be helpful for you. All right, so first of all, I don't know if you can see, it's on the back of this. The foundation is Dr. Joel Fuhrman's G-bombs that he talks about. So it's greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. G-bombs. And so those are the things that you need to be eating every day. These are things that fight cancer and do all kinds of great things for your system. So let's start with greens. I have kale and spinach. Those two are some really great types of greens. Kale is cruciferous, which fights cancer, and spinach is also very good for you, and a lot of those phytochemicals and nutrients, they absorb into your system really well. So if you are eating non-starchy veggies, then onions, anything from the onion family, so onions and garlic, they are like superheroes when it comes to fighting cancer. So try to get these things into your system every day if at all possible. With garlic, what you want to do is, if you're cutting it up or mincing them, whatever you're doing, you want to let that sit for at least 10 minutes, because the enzymes that are beneficial for you, the whole reason why you want to eat them to begin with, other than the fabulous taste, is because it needs the time to build up. The enzymes have to build up, and that takes a little bit of time. So onions, garlic, great for you. Mushrooms are super fighters of cancer, but according to Dr. Fuhrman, you need to cook those mushrooms. Now, normally people say, oh, raw only, raw only. I wonder where these people are getting their science, Some things are better raw and some things are better cooked. Mushrooms are better cooked because raw mushrooms have a slight amount of natural carcinogen. So to get rid of that, you cook it. All I do to cook my mushrooms is I get a packet, I cut them up, I stick them in a bowl, I put some water in there, and I microwave steam them. There's nothing wrong with cooking in a microwave. And if I get a bunch of comments saying, oh my God, don't cook in a microwave, give me some peer-reviewed literature on that, and then I'll change my mind. But if you're gonna throw a bunch of bro science at me, I'm just not gonna give that any weight, and neither should anybody else. Alrighty, for non-starchy veggies, also your other cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, bok choy, and watercress, all of those are really super good for you. Now, if you're going to cook any cruciferous vegetable, you need to either like chop it up finely first and then cook it and then eat it, or if you're going to cook it in larger chunks, then add mustard. Here's why. There is a compound, and they're called isothiocyanates. I hope I'm saying that right. I think I am. And what it does is it takes two different enzymes, and as you're chewing the raw cruciferous vegetable, it mashes the two enzymes together to form these isothiocyanates. And those are your cancer fighters. I mean, they're so good for you. But when you cook a cruciferous vegetable, one of those enzymes, I believe, or the thing that connects them, something in that whole process gets lost. So if you want to keep that cancer fighting power in your cooked cruciferous vegetables, you either chop it up finely so that way those enzymes are already put together before you're cooking it, or you can cook it and you can simply add mustard to it, because mustard has the enzyme that is needed in order for that isothiocyanate to be created. So there's a little tip for you. All right, back to my list. Okay, you can also eat beets, and what people want to know often is, what do they eat with their salad? And someone that I know called me earlier today and said, well, can I have like canned beets as a salad dressing? And I said, if you're doing high carb, low fat, then yes. It's not ideal because of the caloric density due to all the sugars, but that's okay. I'd rather see somebody do that than, you know, God forbid, go for like some sort of dairy, like a ranch or something like that. Ugh, like that's not good. And it's definitely better than dumping a bunch of oil. If you're doing high carb, low fat, you need to stay away from the added oil. So it's fine to go ahead and do that. You can eat beets. Beets are very good for you. You can eat your carrots. If you want to eat tomatoes, fine. Some people will freak out if I say tomatoes. They're like, Dr. Gundry, Dr. Gundry. Dr. Gundry, his book, the very first citation in his big book, like, it actually claims the opposite of what he's trying to claim. And I will put a link to that video by Dr. Krieger right here. It's astounding. Like throw that stuff in the garbage, seriously. Tomatoes are fine. All right, let's see. I've gone through all of that. You can, of course, have zucchini, whatever other non-starchy vegetable you want to have. It's going to be fine. All right, some people shouldn't have nice nightshades because of their particular system. So if that's you, avoid nightshades. Everybody else can have nightshades. It's not a problem. Cooked beans. Cooked beans from a can is fine if you don't want to make them yourself. To make them yourself is really super cheap, but if you want canned beans like pintos or black beans or kidney beans, it doesn't matter. The beans are very, very, very good for you. And some of the longest living people on the planet, one thing that's consistent is beans. So beans are great for you for a variety of reasons. And if you get canned beans, actually keeping a little bit of the juice from the canned beans, it's good for you. There's some, like, I can't remember exactly what it is that gets left over in that juice, but it's good for you. So you don't have to drain it 100% completely. You don't have to rinse it. You might want to keep a little bit of that in there just because of the nutrients that are left over in that juice. Also with beans, you can have lentils, you can have split peas, chickpeas, you know, and green beans. Okay, seeds. If you're gonna have seeds, the most ideal seed to have is ground flaxseed. If you eat whole flaxseed, it's just gonna go straight through your system, and you aren't gonna get the benefits of the flaxseed. The reason why flaxseed is so important is because a lot of people who eat whole food, plant-based, or vegan, they don't get enough omega-3. So they eat, let's say, a lot of avocado, and if you're doing low fat, you shouldn't be eating a whole lot of avocado anyway, but a lot of other people who are plant-based eat a lot of avocado, and they eat a lot of other things that have safflower oil, sunflower oil. All of these things are really high in omega-6. Now you need omega-6, but it's really important to keep your omega-3 and omega-6 ratios in balance, and you need more omega-3s than omega-6s. A lot of your vegan junk food is made with sunflower and safflower oil, so you have high omega-6. And where are you getting your omega-3s? Well, that's where flaxseed comes in. So your ground flaxseed, it has short chain omega-3s, and almost everybody, not everybody, but almost everybody is able to convert that short chain omega-3 into a long chain omega-3. And that's what's really good for you. If you are concerned about possibly not being able to convert a short chain omega-3 into a long chain omega-3, then I recommend a supplement. And Dr. Furman does sell this. It's a DHA EPA supplement, and I will put a link to that below this video. It is made from algae. So the reason why fish have omega-3 is actually because of the algae. It's not because of the fact that, you know, they are necessarily themselves abundant makers of omega-3s. But this algae-derived EPA DHA, that is the long form of omega-3, and so if you're concerned about that, you can have that as a supplement. All right, and if you don't want your ground flax, you should have, if you're going to do that, do about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons every single day of the ground stuff, and you can put that on oatmeal. You can just dump it on top of your salad. That's what I tend to do, one of those 2 things, and it's fine. It does thicken with liquid though, so just keep that in mind so your consistencies aren't all weird in whatever you're trying to eat. If you don't want ground flaxseed, then go ahead and try chia. Chia will have some, let's see, what is it? Oh, I forget what it is that has in it. It might be omega-3s, but it's something else that has in there. I'll put that in the box below when I remember it. But chia is good for you too, but not as good for you as ground flaxseed. That's the best. Okay, people ask me about hemp seed hearts, and those also have omega-3s, but they are more calorically dense, and so I probably would be choosing the flax over the hemp seed. And hemp seed hearts are really high in fat, so if you're doing a high fat, low carb whole food plant-based, I'd say go for the hemp seed hearts, but otherwise just nix those. Okay, nuts. If you're doing high carb, you want to have not a whole bunch of nuts. You don't want to just be snacking on nuts. I mean, if you think about it, back when we were evolving or adapting or whatever you want to think about it as, we didn't just have an abundance of de-shelled nuts that we were just eating by the handful. We had to like go and gather them and then de-shell them, and those took time, and we were eating them with other things. So if you're eating nuts, don't eat them by themselves as like a munchy snack. Have them with your greens, because you need a little bit of fat. You only need a little tiny bit of fat in order to absorb all of the nutrients and the phytochemicals and the fat-soluble vitamins that are in your salad. So don't dump a bunch of oil on your salad. You don't need to do that. It's not going to be nutritious. There's no nutrition whatsoever to the oil that you dump on your salad. Instead, just put a few nuts on there, and that'll be enough. And certainly the fat that's already in ground flaxseed, that would be enough too if you just want to go that way. Same with avocado. If you're going to have avocado on your salad or eat avocado, make sure that you have it actually with your vegetables, and then really limit it no more than a quarter of an avocado per day, because it's just so calorific. And remember, what we're talking about in this video is a low-calorie, high-carb, low-fat, whole food plant-based diet. All right, still going. I hope that, let's just take a pause for a second. If you think that I'm giving you a lot of information and that you're benefiting, or somebody you know can benefit from this information, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that, and then subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will make sure to get you some additional content about other things that you do for your eating. All right, moving on. Let's look at fruits. Okay, so I'm sorry that I'm messing with my face, but like little hairs are getting in my face, and that's just the way it is. All right, fruits. Berries are the best. So remember, I started talking about these foods by talking about Joel Fuhrman's G-bombs: greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. Dr. Furman says you should be eating these every day. So I love oatmeal. I used to eat oatmeal with brown sugar and soy milk, and I don't do that anymore. I don't add sugar to like anything anymore. I love my oatmeal with fresh blueberries. It's so delicious. Do that. Try it if you haven't done so already. And most raw fruit is going to be unlimited, most of it. I'd probably stay away from your raw coconut, again, because it's just so high in fat and really calorific. Avoid dry fruits, not because they're bad for you, but just because they're high in calories. If you're trying to lose fat, we need to get you in a caloric deficit. And that's not going to happen if you munch on a bunch of nuts and dry fruits. You can overeat on a whole food plant-based diet. People say that you can't. That's not true. I've done it. And there are other people, if you research, who have done it. So just try to avoid your dried fruits. Do the fresh stuff. And if you really, really want a date or something, that's not dried, but no more than one a day, because one date is like 64 calories or something. It's a lot of calories. No canned fruits because of the high calorie content. It's usually packed with a lot of sugar water, and you don't need that. And the only exception, of course, is when I said earlier, if you want a can of dried beets and if you want to use that as your salad dressing instead of, let's say, using an oil, of course, I'd much rather you use the canned beets rather than an oil. All right. If you want oats, you can have oats. Oats are really great for you. Have them with raw blueberries. If you want some soy milk with that, that's fine. Beverages, though, I recommend that you don't down the soy milk constantly, just because of the calorie content, but there isn't anything bad about soy milk. Try to get soy milk where the only ingredients are soybeans and water. Try to stay away from carrageenan. That is a very questionable ingredient. I stay away from it completely. And a lot of soy milks add sugar, so try to stay away from that because of the extra calories. You don't need it. I eat or drink West Soy, unsweetened organic soy milk. That's what I do. And for beverages, of course, water is going to be best. I like sparkling water. I avoid the sparkling water that has added sodium. Let's see. Yeah, so here's LaCroix. Now, there's a lawsuit against LaCroix right now, and it's making claims. I've looked into it, and I'm a lawyer, and it doesn't seem to be very substantiated. It seems like it's just a bunch of, lawyers who are trying to make money off of the lawsuit, frankly, so I wouldn't really worry about that. But there are other kinds of, carbonated water that you can drink that don't have sodium added, and those will be fine. Green tea, super good for you. Hibiscus tea, really super good for you. And that's what I would stick with. If you have to have a sweetener with your tea, I don't recommend sweeteners for your tea or anything. I really don't. But if you're like, I'm not going to drink this tea without sugar and I really want this tea, and if you know you're going to do it anyway, then use erythritol. It's spelled ERYTHRITOL. And I'll link to the one that I happen to use. I'm not affiliated with any erythritol company whatsoever, but that is shown to have a totally neutral effect. It does not spike your insulin whatsoever, not even one tiny iota. And I've read the literature on that myself. If you want to have a starchy vegetable, avoid white potatoes. This is where all the McDougall people are going to want to riot and hang me in effigy, but look at the research. So I'll post a video here where Dr. Greger explains that white potato is actually not good for you. It has more of a negative effect than it does a positive effect. If you want a potato, get a sweet potato. Sweet potatoes are really good for you. Butternut squash is fine. If you want some fresh corn, that's fine. If you're going to cook any of these things, do water cooking or wet cooking, like steaming or boiling rather than dry roasting in an oven, because of the carcinogenic effect that dry cooking has. All right, supplements. I already talked about DHA, EPA. That's only if you can't convert short chain omega-3s into long chain omega-3s. Almost all Americans are deficient in vitamin D. So if you do not live in a sunshiny area, and if you do not get out in the sunshine every single solitary day enough to get your vitamin D for the day, then get a vitamin D supplement. This is the vitamin D that I use, Daily D, and it's a plant-based source. And vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, and this already does come with, it's made with, I believe it's coconut oil. I stay away from coconut oil. I don't even care if I'm eating keto. I do not eat coconut oil. All of the people in the whole world saying coconut oil is amazing for you and it does all of these great things and it helps with dementia and it helps with blah, 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 blah. This is bro science. This is not real science. There is not one peer-reviewed journal article in existence to date that shows that consuming coconut oil is good for you. If you find it, send it my way and I'll be happy to change my opinion about that, but it's not out there. Coconut oil is great topically. I love using it for my skin. It does not absorb into your system, and using olive oil topically doesn't absorb into your system either, with the exception of babies. Don't be rubbing oil on your babies. There's no reason to do that. Okay, let's see. Oh, B12. Oh my goodness gracious. If you're going whole food plant-based, or even if you are a junk food eating vegan, please, please, please take a vitamin B12 supplement. A lot of people who have not done their research, they just think that they can do it because they're like, well, you know, like plants have everything we need. You know what? That's true, except for B12. B12 does not come from animals. It does not come from plants. It comes from bacteria in the soil. And what happened is that while we were evolving, adapting, however you want to think about it, we would just grab some veggies out from the ground and we would eat it, and there would be some residual soil on there, and that is how we got our B12 naturally. The only reason why animals have B12 is because they eat a bunch of crap. Frankly, they are fed so much crap. If you want to do the research on that, it's really sad. But they eat crap that's mixed in with a bunch of dirt and soil and whatever, so they happen to root in that stuff. And that's why they have it. So please, please take your vitamin B12. All the research shows that the best kind of B12 is cyanocobalamin. I will put a link to the type that I take below. I just ordered on Amazon. It's super cheap. It lasts forever. And for those of you who are going to say, well, cyanocobalamin, that is made by humans, so it can't be as good. The research shows otherwise. So, yeah, research. Very important. All right. We've covered supplements. Resources. If you want to look up some of this stuff yourself, I recommend the nutritionfacts.org, which is the website that Dr. Michael Greger, it's not like Michael and I were buds. Dr. Michael Greger, that's his website. It's 501c3 and it's donation based. So he has a little search box up at the top of that website, and you could plug in any food, and you could plug in any human ailment, and if food is linked to benefits or to any sort of negative side effects for the human body, he will probably have done a video on it. And all the videos are based on the literature. If there is an ailment that you want to look up, let's say you're pre-diabetic or you're concerned about your mom who has cancer or something like that, you can type that into the search box, and if there's anything related to that ailment having to do with food, either negative or positive, he's probably done a video about it, and he continues to do videos. Not only that, but all the research that he discusses and points to in his videos, all the links to those papers are available in one of the tabs that are below his videos. So it's just so important that you go to resources that are trustworthy and that are based on evidence. Dr. Greger also has an app. It's available, I believe, on Android and iPhone. Either one of those are fine, and it's called the Daily Dozen. And so every day, making sure you get your 2 teaspoons of your flax or whatever else that you're going to be needing. Try to avoid, if you're on a high-carb, low-fat low-calorie, whole food, plant-based diet. Avoid processed junk. This includes processed vegan junk. So if you're like, oh, I have this amazing vegan carrot cake, that's processed vegan junk. Get rid of it. I try to also avoid breads because bread does not come out of the ground. Bread is processed. And I'm not saying you can never eat bread ever again, but what I'm saying is that if you're trying to get rid of body fat, if you want to be full, and if you want to be, eating low calories so that you can be in a caloric deficit, avoid bread because it's highly calorific. Avoid your tortillas, avoid your pastas. Those things, they are not whole foods. I will say that maybe I'd make an exception for corn tortillas, true corn tortillas, because they are corn and the lime and water only. And so maybe, but it just depends. And I apologize for the noise in the background, but we've got some cooking going on for today. So try to just stick with your whole food. Your body will thank you, and you will lose body fat. I promise you. Like, so many people have done it, and I'm one of those people. Avoid sodas, including diet sodas. They're not good for you. If you want something fizzy, you can have your fizzy water. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, and I already talked about avoiding white potatoes. Don't add sugar. You can add, if you want to add dates, if you want to add blueberries, if you want to add something else that is sweet that's a whole food, you can do that. Try to avoid adding salt just because it's not good for you. Plus, I'll just back up, with adding sugars, you're also adding calories, which is not good. And with your added oils and fats, just try to avoid that. If you need a fat in your salad in order to be able to absorb the vitamins and all the other nutrients that go along with it, then have some nuts. Again, don't have a ton of nuts, but have, like Dr. Greger said, as few as 5 walnut halves would be enough in order to be able to absorb all of the benefits in your salad. So just don't pile on the oil. There's nothing that's going to be beneficial about that. And so when it comes to making onions or mushrooms, if you're going to be cooking them, and if you're thinking, well, I have to use oil in order to make my sauteed onions or sauteed mushrooms, you don't have to. You can water saute. But if you're like, well, I've already tried that and it's disgusting, if you really don't like doing that, and if you are going to use oil no matter what I say, no matter what the research shows, then use a spray oil and just really quick, like not even a full second, like shh. No, that's too much. More like shh. That's all you need to get whatever it is that you're trying to go for with your sauteing. And what I recommend is not spray coconut oil. It's so high in saturated fat, you just want to avoid that. So you want to go with either canola oil, which at least you have some omega-3s happening there. And then some people say, well, no, because getting the oil out of canola, it's so not, it's so hard to do that. You should choose something else. Fine. Get cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, which is not a health food. I'm not saying it's a health food, but if you're going to do it anyway, just a quick, and at least you'll get some omega-3s and some omega-6s with that. So that is, oh my God, is that everything? It's so much information. I'm overwhelming myself. All right, lots of information. That is my high-carb, low-fat, whole food, plant-based, low-calorie 101. And the thing is, if you have like a giant salad, people are like, I don't want a salad. I get it. Do you want to lose body fat? If you want to lose body fat, eat a salad. It takes up a whole bunch of room and you'll be full. And then people will complain, well, yeah, but I'm not full for long. I'm hungry an hour later. That's okay. An hour later, you can have anything on this list that I just explained. You can eat again. It's going to be okay. If you need to kick it up a notch, then I recommend that you skip breakfast. You can do it. You do not need to be eating all the time. You don't need to be eating 5 or 6 meals a day. That is a total BS lie. So you don't need to be doing that. If you need to kick it up another notch, then try going 5-2. I'll have a video to that up here, how to do that. Do 5-2 fasting. And if you really need to kick it up a notch, and like, let's say you've been doing this for a little while and now you need to kick it up one more notch, then one meal a day. You can have a big meal that day, but one meal a day, gigantic salad, and top it off for dessert being like an oatmeal with blueberries or something, you will drop body fat. It will happen. It will absolutely happen for you. And I know you can do it. I'm so proud of you for making it this far in the video. Please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you have not already done so. Leave a comment or question below. I will get back to you as soon as I can. And if you're watching this when I'm putting it out, Happy New Year, everybody. You can make this happen for your life. All right, take care. Ciao.